With very serious allegations of that are being made against a Swiss bank.
Yes, this from a US congressional committee which says that Credit Suisse helped as many as 19,000 American account holders to avoid paying US taxes. Now, the report says staff at the bank used tactics including flaunting visa rules and holding secret meetings to encourage people to open accounts with them, many of which were undeclared to the US authorities. A 2-year investigation found that Credit Suisse had held some 10,000 US bank accounts at an office at at Zurich Airport. The US authorities are now pursuing 14 different Swiss banks in an effort to uncover accounts that they weren't aware of held by wealthy US citizens. But senators will hear later from both the CEO of Credit Suisse and other officials to discuss this issue further.
OK, those updates obviously coming in a few hours' time, but for the time being, the markets are now open. Has this affected Credit Suisse's share price? Yeah,
it has opened down in Zurich by about 1.3% a couple of moments ago. In general, though, across Europe, it's a fairly flat start to trading across the markets. Investors will be watching closely for figures on the growth in the UK economy due out later. The FTSE 100 just slightly tipping into the red there, fairly flat, as you can see across the rest of the European markets. Over in Asia, it was a fairly sluggish day on the markets there as well. The Nikkei trading in negative territory, down about 0.5%. It closed. Shanghai managed to claw back slightly some of those big losses that we saw yesterday. It had closed down yesterday to 2%, slightly back in the green today. This despite the continuing sliding value of the Chinese currency, causing investors some concern there.
OK, market roundup there. Let's turn our attention to company news.
Yeah, plenty of company results out this morning, and we'll start with the aerospace giant Airbus, which has reported a 22% increase in net profit for 2013 to almost 1.5 billion euros. Revenue also grew 5% on the back of record deliveries of new passenger jets. The company says it expects orders to remain higher than deliveries in the coming year. Its shares were up about 1.5% in Paris a short time ago. The French construction and telecoms firm Bouygues has reported a net loss of 757 million euros for last year. That's due to a write-down of 1.4 billion on its stake in the engineering company Alstom. The news comes as reports Bouygues may be interested in purchasing its rival mobile network SFR. Shares in the company up over 5%, the biggest gainer on the Paris' CAC 40. And the Spanish oil company Repsol has accepted $5 billion in compensation from the Argentinian government over the seizure of its subsidiary YPF. The payment, to be made in government bonds, is over Argentina's nationalisation of the company, which was 51% owned by Repsol. The move in April 2012 had sparked international outrage from Spain and its EU partners.
Right then, Stephen, a story that we've talked about a lot in recent months without necessarily really understanding all the ins and outs, in my case at least. But we're talking about the virtual currency Bitcoin and, in fact, new doubts over its future, even though it had been hailed as sort of a big new growth area. Indeed,
and it had been, in large cases, considered to be quite safe by the people who used it. That's now thrown into chaos after one of the biggest exchanges for Bitcoin, these are sites where you can buy and sell it, went offline yesterday. Now, Japanese authorities say they're watching closely the situation with Mt. Gox, which disappeared from the internet yesterday amid allegations that some $300 million worth of the virtual currency Bitcoin had gone missing. Now, this again raising those concerns that Bitcoin isn't regulated by any government or central bank authority and casting doubts over its future stability. Catherine Viette has been looking at these questions.
It's the Wild West of currency, and now an apparent massive theft has shaken consumer confidence. But many still believe technologies like Bitcoin have a future.
Any currency is only as good as, the trust that people put into it. And even though the technology of Bitcoin is excellent, I think the level of faith that people have in it, especially because of the volatility that we've seen in its value, that has to calm down a little before people start to say, hey, this is actually better than PayPal or better than Visa.
Some analysts say growing pains are to be expected with new technologies, and the collapse of the Mt. Gox exchange will weed out the bad actors.
Either the Bitcoin community will convince us that it's a one-off and a new form of maybe partially regulated exchange can solve these problems and take the good and get rid of the bad, or people will start losing faith.
Nearly everyone believed more oversight was in Bitcoin's future.
I think what we'll see from this is that governments will try and enforce some kind of regulation because, as we've discovered, there's around $350 million worth of Bitcoins have been stolen, so that's a lot of money to go missing.
Despite this recent crisis, trading is still strong, with one Bitcoin equivalent to $500.
OK, finally then, Stephen, a big mystery in the finance world has been resolved. Tell us.
Yes, this is the Twitter account known as Goldman Sachs Elevator Gossip, founded in 2011. It was meant to contain comments that you might have overheard if you were travelling in the lifts at the Wall Street Bank. It gained significant followers, over 600,000 of them, in fact, coming to prominence with some contributions which we've picked out for you, including one saying, an overheard conversation apparently saying, "I already know I'm going to hell." So at this point, it's go big or go home. Another one that was posted on the Twitter account, an overheard comment: "You shouldn't retire until your money starts making more money than you made in your best year." So typifying some of, I suppose, the hyperbole around Wall Street bankers. Goldman Sachs had been trying to find out who was behind this account for some time. They didn't manage to do so. Instead, it was a New York Times journalist that uncovered the man behind it had in fact never worked at Goldman Sachs. His name's John Lefebvre. He used to work at Citigroup, another bank in New York and in America in general. Now, in response to this discovery, Goldman Sachs has said that they have now lifted their official ban on talking in elevators as a result of this investigation. OK,
nice tongue-in-cheek response from Goldman Sachs. Thanks very much, Stephen Carroll, with the business news there. We're going to take a look now at what's grabbing headlines in the international media with Florence Villeminot. Hi there.
Hi, Gavin.
Ukraine